Namaste Galactic family. Welcome back to the channel tonight. We have a Sunday Fun Day special for you guys, diving into some pretty intricate and uh, some very pressing topics. Tonight we're going to be going into really getting into the nitty-gritty of the modern day force breeder programs. And I have been speaking about this for some time. I've been an advocate for this on all of the multidimensional levels in which it exists on the planet. Um, Speaking about it all the way back to when it began during the Lemurian tribal wars, all the way to modern day, where we see it playing out within the draconian reptilian factions and everything that's really playing out in the holy wars right now is where a lot of the force breeder programs are getting exposed. A lot of this brutality and cruelty against women is essentially coming to the light. And this darkness is surging into the light at an unprecedented rate. A lot of people are starting to wake up to what's happening to the women all over the world. And so it's a catalyst, I think, unlike anything that the earth has ever experienced and seen before. And we definitely feel like we have a huge part in revealing more and more of these atrocities impacting women globally to the world and using our voices as much as we possibly can. So these truths must be known, and we must extend our care beyond our immediate reach within our own personal grids. I think all of us women here tonight are based in the United States, but we are going to be talking about all the pressing matters reaching far across the ocean, really where the core of a lot of these things currently exist. This is the core, this is the epicenter of where the modern day forest breeder programs are happening. So this is the root of the battle. We think it's the holy wars. We think it's everything we see playing out. We think it's, the religious wars and this and that, but underneath it all, it's the divine feminine struggle. And this goes beyond external power structures of the Armageddon narratives. At the root, this is about the reptilian predatorial force, the Draco hive mind invasion, and the age-old divide originating from the Lemurian wars. So tonight we are going to look at where women have been targeted, where they are being targeted, where this is coming up, going into all of the measures of the abuse of control, all of the war, rape, and violence, all of the sexual and reproductive enslavement, and really this discussion of the eye for the eye punishments that are occurring over in the Iranian regime right now. Some of these things that many of you might not be aware is going on, these atrocities that are happening to women. And it goes far beyond the eye for an eye punishment. Um, it breaks down to acid attacks, stoning women to death, lashings for not wearing their essentially their hijabs and things like this. Okay. And so also female circumcision, sexual mutilation, including the removal of the female clitoris, basically sexual torture. And as I'm struggling to even get these words out because it's hard to even say these things, right? But a lot is happening, and these are difficult subjects, but I feel comforted and I feel very guided that I'm here with some of the strongest women that I personally know, women who are advocates and they are not holding back in a lot of ways. They're speaking about these things and they are standing as a face for all women. And so thank you, Divine Sisters, for being here. I just want to say that first and foremost. But as you know, I've been talking about this on my channel. All of this really goes back to the 10th Stargate in the Iran and Iraq border in terms of Universal Stargate hijacking, where this is controlled by the Omicron reptilian legions and continues to, rage and, conquer new lands through invasion. So we are really in the thick of all of this. And so I want to start by introducing each one of my beautiful sisters that have come here to speak tonight, and then kind of kick the conversation off just a little bit about where we feel that things currently are in terms of current events, the current timelines, and what's kind of playing out in the Middle East, kind of set a little bit of a stage for this. And then we will dive into where the women are being targeted and how they are being targeted. This is really to bring awareness. And these things are, again, they're difficult to speak about. So if you are sensitive right now, if you're feeling like things may be triggering you right now in terms of, the brutality, the cruelty, the hatred, which is very high, very vibrationally rising in the timelines, these things can be difficult to transmute. So if you are sensitive, I just want to give you a little bit of like a forewarning that this, may or may not be your show today. But if you're feeling, like you got your shields up, you feel like a warrior tonight, and you want to dive into this discussion with us, you want to support women in the world, um, we thank you for being here and we thank you for your support. And we just want to thank you for tuning in with us tonight. It looks like we already have so many checking in the chat. I just want to say that you do have to be subscribed to the channel for at least 60 seconds to get into the chat. And we appreciate you guys so much. We love it when you put comments down in the chat. We are constantly checking the chat. We love to engage with you. So please don't be shy. Come and tune in with us. Put a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel, hit that notifications bell, and thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. And just special thank you to Noko as well, because she said a beautiful prayer for us all coming into this. And, we really just, took a moment to kind of clear the energy coming in to have this discussion with you guys. So I'm going to start the introductions and kick that off. As you guys know, I'm IndigoAngel. I go by Indy. My name is Amanda Jane DeMarco. And one of my passion topics, and forever will be my passion topic, I will never stop speaking on this issue. I will never stop fighting and advocating for women, especially when some of these things are just female crucifixion wounds that are just they're hard to bear, and I won't stop talking about what's going on. I made a promise to this to myself. I made a promise to this when I visited Algeria on Teen Hinon's grave, and so I am in it for all women of the world. And so I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here, and I'm going to pass this over to Shideh to say hello to all of you. And Shideh, let them know a little bit, where you came from, because you are from Iran. So we're really tying in some pieces here.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thank you so much for being here, for joining us in this gathering to basically once again to shed light on some unspoken truth and to talk about some brutality has been going on in the other part of the world that I really think that it's mostly being censored by the whole media. Yeah, I come from Iran. I'm an Iranian American. About 15 years ago, I came here for the purpose of higher education. And then I had the honor to stay here and become an American citizen. Yeah, but when I was born and raised in Iran, and I literally, as a woman, I literally felt that tyranny has been going on against women and in different levels, even in education, in the schooling, in the job, because I have also went to university in Iran, and also I had like a governmental job in Iran, and literally, with all my senses, I felt all my relatives, all my family. I used to listen to conversation of women in a family gathering, whatever they were complaining in family, from their men, from their fathers, from their husbands, from the society, from the regime, government, everything, Islamic principles. And I could say that with all my heart, I was feeling it. I felt so sad. I had so many questions. Why it's happening? Why it's not right? It's not normal. It's not a normal life. And through all the research I had, finally I found that, the whole picture got displayed to me, what has been going on to this world. And I'm really glad to be part of this team this divine feminine to expose whatever has been going on in some other part of the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shideh. Yeah, we are really excited to have your voice here and to share like from lived experience. So this it brings a lot of value to this conversation, and I just honor you for being so courageous to speak on your truth. Thank you so much. And Marja, welcome, sister.
Hi, darlings. My name is Marja West, and I am actually an advocate for survivors of sex trafficking, labor trafficking. I'm going into my 39th year as an advocate doing trauma deactivation for survivors of trafficking. I've traveled to over 110 countries since the 70s and have firsthand witnessed the aftermath of what happens in war zones, what happens in thug zones, what happens in many non-English speaking parts of the world where women and children, including boys and girls, are being harvested of their human rights. And I've gotten myself into a lot of trouble. I have a healing practice over the last almost 40 years where I specifically work with survivors. So to unwind the mind control and the harvesting of energy that tends to go on unchecked and unchallenged because it is a very demonic force that is behind the scenes of all this evil. I immigrated to the United States. I have a very diverse background heritage-wise, have had family escape from communist regimes, have had families gone through many very divisive forms of terrorism and ethnic cleansing. So I've got this stuff running through my DNA. And one of the things that I learned over the many, many decades of doing this work and being a witness is that you can't unsee a lot of the evils, and a lot of the things that we have to do is really start facing the evils that we have within, because one of the things that I witnessed in much of the work that I've done is that it perpetuates because the majority of the people behind the scenes who perpetuate this evil happen to be women. And I did not want to face that. I've worked very hard to try to deny it and shield myself, but it's the absolute truth. And we need to face up to that because there are women in our ranks who act a certain way, but unfortunately, they are overrun by this mind control and this demonic force. And a lot of their motivations have a lot to do with greed. A lot of their motivations is also that they are being threatened under pain of death. So anyways, that's just a little bit of where I'm coming from. And I'm happy to be here. So thank you, Amanda, for the invitation to participate.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sacred Sister, for being here. And I think you just made some really significant points there that I think we're going to tie into the conversation tonight. And thank you so much. Welcome, Ani. How are you, sister?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be on the show with some very, very strong women. I too come from a line of some very strong women on my mother's side, and it's always been instilled in me to protect women and all life on this planet. On the other hand, I on my father's side, they're Armenian, and so my grandmother was an orphan in the Armenian genocide. So there's that deep genocidal loss, victimization, all of that stuff on my other side. And so I find it fascinating, to bring in this like kind of Middle Eastern background, because I also have it as well. But they all moved to the United States. And so they are over here. So there's this huge loss of our culture because they came to the United States. And so my dad came here from Beirut, Lebanon when he was 19. And so yeah, everything that all of you are saying, I feel like it's almost like ingrained like within my system, like it's in my genetics, it's epigenetic. And my whole life I've been trying to like find answers and try and heal the traumas. And what I found interesting is that it is passed down generational, like what my dad has gone through and then passed on to me and the things that I've experienced in my life. So I feel like it's amazing to bring this, up front and, really talk about the life force that is like within all of us, and also really bring forth what women have gone through in the past, in these type of deep, dark, like almost like death cults, so I'm going to kind of bring that forward to the table today, and also just like that strong feminine energy as well. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ani. When I first connected to you and you initially told me a little bit about your background, I really like connected with all of that. So yeah, I really honor um, your history and your ancestors, and so it'll be interesting to see everything you bring forward today. Thank you for being here. And last but not least, Noko, Divine Sister, thank you so much. How are you today?
Hi there. Thank you, Indy. I'm always honored to be on with y'all. And with this beautiful panel, it's just even more of a pleasure here with my sisterhood. So I am a sound healer, crystal keeper, frequency worker. I actually am an angelic gatekeeper, and I feel like I get a lot of data and intel and kind of connect the dots information that comes in that helps me a lot with these sort of roundtables. So I've definitely been collecting data. I know I've been telling Indy that along the way here. And for me, I mean, come on, I'm a mom. I'm a mom like of two boys, and I haven't had any daughters, and I've always wanted to, of course. But I just feel this strong pull to really raise my boys as the divine masculine, to really like help with this proper balance and of this, divine feminine uprising. And I come from a family that had a lot of rape, a lot of abuse. I myself have experienced date rape. I will just be honest with that. And I witnessed a lot of terrible things happen to women in my life. So this is a really, really strong topic for me. I also come from one side of my lineage has kind of this mysterious adoption that happened that nobody wants to talk about. And we do believe that she was a Native American from the Iroquois tribe that was kind of brought into our family and obviously is one of my great grandmothers. And it's kind of this hush hush, but I really do think it links up to some of these topics that we're going to be going into, as far as some of the injustices that have happened to women and how they've been treated as property, how they are sometimes looked at as a piece of meat. And the me going through some of that in my life, I've really been able to find this spot in my heart that I want to stand up against that. I also have done a lot of activism, as I've spoken about before. I did a lot of work in the needle tech area with standing up and talking about the injustices in that space. And in doing that, I noticed when I looked around me that I was surrounded by all women. There were no men in the crowd. And that's no shade on the men, but it did say something to me about where we were as a society. And in my mind, in my heart, with how this, divine masculine, divine feminine would work, those divine masculine would be the first up there at the plate, protecting our children, protecting our women. And so that is something that I'm glad to see a turnaround much more lately with more men coming to the table. And I'm really excited to empower them in that way because I think that it's all by design. I don't think that it's their choice and their fault. And so I'm just here supporting, that beautiful balance of, sacred union and really bringing back, the divine masculine to support the divine feminine and really calling in the justice that is really deserved in all of these areas. So thank you so much for being brave enough to bring this topic forward. And I'm just excited to see where it goes. So thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So, wow, so many amazing points. I think you're really tying it in for the divine masculine, which is we definitely want to come from a place that we're supportive of the masculine and knowing that this isn't any shade on the masculine in any way. It's really more so shade on, the draconian empire uh, in some sense and the invasions that have taken place. Just to give a little bit of history, I think we are going to kind of focus more on the Islamic aspect of the forced breeder programs, essentially because this is where it's mostly identified. This is where we can mostly see it. But forced breeder programs do happen all over the world. I mean, it's happening here in the United States through different points that I think Marja mentioned with sex trafficking and women being a part of this. And, it's happening in many ways and it's happened through many places throughout history. Um, you know, the Nephilim, the angels, 200 fallen angels descending down and forcibly took the daughters of men in sexual relations. This, kind of was some of the beginning points of where we can identify where women, I guess, essentially started to lose their power over their fertility, reproduction, power of choice, power of sovereignty, freedom, being controlled. We had, the Irish women and the Mary Magdalene laundries. We know that a lot of the Irish women were essentially forced bred in the Atlantic slave trade, forced to breed mulatto slaves and things like this. The African women in the Atlantic slave trades, and on and on. It just goes on and on. There's been rape used as a weapon of war, as we've seen currently in the Hamas and Israel conflict with hostages and things like this, gang rapes in Europe right now with the white British girls that have been basically kind of, handed over to these Pakistani rape gangs and things like this, and nobody's doing anything about this, and on and on. And I feel like why the Islamic Stargate 10 types have really kind of touched my heart was when I really learned about the Yazidi genocide. I mean, where 10,800 Yazidi women and girls were subjugated to forced conversions and essentially raped and burned alive in cages. And I think the story that most resonated with me is there's actually a girl who wrote a book about this. She was a survivor of the Yazidi massacre, and she was supposed to do like a press tour in Canada, and they would not let this woman speak about her book because all of the politicians and things like this, they want to sweep her story up underneath the rug because they don't want the rest of the world to know about what's going on because it will create Islamophobia and all of these things. So this is kind of how people don't know about this stuff I mean, there are funded organizations that keep these things under wraps so the rest of the world doesn't know about it. The interesting thing about the Middle East is it never really actually used to be like this. I think it had a very prosperous matriarchal lineage and tribe that reigned, especially in North Africa. I mean, from Algeria to Tunisia, all of these lands, I mean, they were, pagan and ruled by the matriarchy. Even the Amazonians up in the Black Sea and Turkey and things like this. I mean, it was all under matriarchy. So this dark cloud essentially set into the Middle East. Um, and I think maybe Shideh could probably speak to this on some sense because I mean that kind of happened in your country, right? When the actual Iranian Revolution came in and everything started changing essentially.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, Iran actually went through a very diverse history since it was attacked by Arabs or Islam, I would say, 1400 years ago. And before 1400 years ago, we had some ancient Persia, different dynasties. The last one was Sassanid. And throughout the history we have right now, we know that history is not 100% correct, but whatever the evidence we have right now, we see that before Arabs attack or Islam attacks, actually women had very much right. They had a lot of contribution in the society. They had very high rank positions, even in the government. They were admiral. They were basically leading the whole navy. We have a figure Artemis, who actually played a huge role, and she was actually respected by her enemies as well. And they had some conflict with Greek people, with Greek army, or with Roman armies, and also for some critical positions with the kings, and they were judged before Islam. But unfortunately, when Islam attacked this country, women were number one target for suppression. And they went through huge submission, and actually they paid the highest price. And this fluctuation and this basically suppression continued till almost like 100 years ago, when we had a new king, King Reza, who came over, and actually he made a considerable change in Iran, everything, because his goal was to modernization of Iran and to convert such a very, very, with a primitive culture, very superficial culture, into, and to join Iran back to international stage, and basically kind of bring Iran to its original ancient splendid civilization. And during 13 years, he kind of industrialized Iran. He made a lot of infrastructure. He forbid hijab. He forbid women from wearing burqa, covering their face and also covering their head. And they imposed some kind of like a dress code, Western, very pretty much Western dress code to Iranians. Men had to be wearing suits, and also women had to be wearing kind of like skirt suits with wearing hats, and they had to dress their hair and to be very presentable in the society, and they couldn't be walking in the street with like Islamic outfit anymore. And he actually, during 13 years, I think that was a miracle. He did a great job. And then after him, unfortunately, some incidents happened throughout the history, and British monarchy interfered in Iran's policy, and basically he didn't comply, and British diplomacy really forced him to exile, to leave the monarchy and the crown to his own son. And his son, by the way, King Muhammad Reza, and he's famous as Shah. Shah means king in Persian, and he was educated and kind of raised in Switzerland. He had been highly educated. He had studied economics, laws, international affairs, and also by U.S. Air Force. He was a very good, well-trained pilot. He was very amazing, and he really dreamed big for Iran. He wanted to bring back that ancient prosperous dynasty in Iran once again. That's why that at back time the oil prices raised up, and he took advantage, and the wealth went to the country, and he started building huge infrastructure. Iran looked like a European country. There were so many Americans and European tourists were there. They were working there. We had a lot of foreign investment until almost 1978, that, well, unfortunately, something happened. A lot of manipulations happened. I would say from all forces, from Russia, from British government, from even U.S. back time. We had like a Democratic President Carter leading the U.S. And there were a lot of like manipulation and also that three-letter of agency involvement as well. That revolution happened, that to me, based on the evidence that I am receiving right now, that revolution really didn't made by the people of Iran. It was a huge, huge shenanigan and a scandal, and all the foreign forces and affairs were involved with this. Whatever happened to Iran. And I would say overnight, a lot of dark clouds covered the whole Iran. Iran experiencing a kind of like an open country with a lot of open economy, and the king used to invest a lot on women. He had special scholarships offering to women to go abroad to the best universities and to be educated, to be doctors, to be flight attendants, to be nurses, to be scientists, and getting PhD and coming back to the country to build up the country. And women had a lot of freedom. They had ballet group, they had a lot of like musical group, and they invested on folklore music and dancing groups, and a lot of cultural advancements with emphasis of our ancient cultures as well. A lot of very pretty important and precious stuffs were happening, but overnight something really changed. I would say a very severe dark magic happened in Iran, that all those freedoms and all those prosperity hopes for a better country just overnight went away, and we faced some country named Islamic Republic that it was advocating that we are going based on the Islamic principle. We want to basically exercise the Islamic rules based on Quran, and then lead all the people to the heaven. And because the previous government was from evil, they were dark, they weren't based on God's rules, so we are going to be better. So overnight, 2 years after the revolution, they exercised, they forced a mandatory hijab. And overnight, I wasn't born back then, because I was born just kind of like, I think, 2 years after the revolution. But women overnight, especially that started from the government ministries and government organizations, they forced women, for example, from tomorrow, you have to have some Islamic dress code. And if you are not allowed to come to your work. And then it, happened in the schools, for teachers, for all schools principals, universities, for students in universities. And they managed to develop it very, very rapidly. And when Iranian women actually face such a situation, whatever I hear from my parents' generation, they said that we didn't want to lose our job. We didn't want to lose our contribution in the society, because we thought that we knew that this regime, these mullahs who have come over, they are very brutal. They could see it, their brutality. So they couldn't really deal with them easily. They said that we wanted to keep our position. We wanted to keep our share in the society. So that's why we accepted hijab. We accepted to be wearing those scarves and to hide our hair, but still to keep our job as a doctor, as nurses, as professors, as government civil servants, whatever they were. And honestly, I don't honor their decision, because they had very bad plans for Iranian women, and they didn't succeed, because Iranian women didn't allow it happen. They were huge warriors. And the first years of Iran's revolution, I hear that who were working for government, women especially, they were deprived of their work. They went through huge investigation about all their actions, all their faith towards the new regime, their faith towards Islam, to make sure that they're faithful about whatever principles they were imposing. And for several years, I was so many women were fighting to keep their job positions, to stay in the society and to be active. But later on, their tyranny developed, and they came up with a lot of economic corruptions and crazy nonsense regulations against people, and the severe punishment. Literally, I said in my first interview with Indigo that women were not allowed to go out with their boyfriend, even though with their fiance. Whenever you go to the street with your man, you have to prove that man is either your father or your brother or your husband. Boyfriend or even fiance is not acceptable, and you have to take the consequences. You have to get arrested. You have to
Shideh, can I just ask you a question real quick? I think last time we went through some of the Quran, and I mean, there's actual passages, in
yes,
that are, teaching the men how to handle the women, how to forsake the woman in bed, how to
that's right.
strike the woman if she acts out of line. I mean, there's a lot of things that are, I guess giving all of the power to the men in terms of a sense of God and worship and the allegiance to Muhammad. And so, I mean, this is really kind of where it all stems from, right? At the end of the day, is that the belief, it's the
Yeah.
ideology at the end of the day.
These forces really planned very well. That's why they almost succeeded. They based everything on Quran, so nobody could deny Quran. That was the official religion of the country. And the Quran itself, when I brought up those verses, those surah An-Nur, which is light, and also An-Nisa, which is women, literally it gives all the power to the men, and the men are the guardian of the women, and these men are, it has to be either father, older brother, or husband, basically registered husband, not even boyfriend or fiance. And women literally are kind of second class citizen in the whole society. And these men, they have the whole power to decide for these women. And if these women don't obey, these men are allowed to punish them according to those Quran verses. They can punish them even to keep them hungry, not to give them food, to ignore them, and kind of even to beat them, to hit them. The Quran literally is allowing the husbands and fathers to
Yeah.
do the same,
And
and that has led
it
on.
seems like the circumcision as well is also stated as something that is allowed in the Quran.
Uh,
That's what I looked up was
Not
the
for women. I honestly know, here I'm gonna be fair, and based on my research and whatever I know about Quran, this is not mentioned in Quran, but it is being said this is the way of Prophet Muhammad's lifestyle, and it's being more emphasized on men. And honestly, when I was brought up in Iran, I just heard and witnessed, actually all my family, actually they went through that, but all the men, not women. But then later on, when I was like a teenage, I started hearing about, that this is happening to women as well. When I was born and raised in Tehran, I lived in Tehran, so basically it's more like a civilized, it's a very developed place. So I got really shocked when I found
yeah.
about it. And the first case that I found, I read an article happened in Sudan and in Algeria. But then I researched more, and I found that unfortunately it's happening in some province, Sistan and Baluchistan, which is has a border with Pakistan. It's in southeast of Iran, and also in some area close to Abidan, that Abidan and Stargate. Unfortunately, some of the tribes in villages, people are practicing it against women. But as far as I researched more, I found that actually the government is not really advocating for it, as trying to educate people not to do that. For example, the Ministry of Health is not really promoting it, and also it's trying to
Yeah.
stopping it. But unfortunately, some of the tribes and villages have been doing it, back then that I was doing research. But yeah,
So
that's very,
basically, if the women kind
shocking.
of get out of line, though, that there are violent consequences. And I think the Iranian women have had to be extremely strong to have to fight and push back on this. I know there's actually a woman on X. Her name is Masih Alinejad. I don't know if you've heard of her, Masih Alinejad.
That's
But she
that's correct. Yes.
essentially, yeah, she has had a hit on her from the Iranian regime. I think they put a 500K um target on her to be executed. They were trying to take her out on U.S. soil. And actually, the U.S. government has had to step in and protect this woman. But she's very vocal, speaking out against these things. And this is actually how I found out about the eye for the eye punishment, as I was following some of her feed on X. And so I guess these are severe punishments that, I mean, if they don't wear the hijabs, they don't listen, they don't follow the rules, they don't do as they're told under the Islamic law, that there's these severe repercussions for it. And so Shideh actually put this beautiful, uh, like, put everything together here for me, these pictures. Maybe you can explain a little bit. So this eye for eye punishment, they seem to want to, this seems to be some form of public humiliation towards the women, that if they rise up, such as like in the freedom, uh, freedom women, life freedom women movements and things like this, that they will attack their faces to scar them for the rest of their lives. You think this is a
Yeah.
humiliation tactic, essentially?
I would I would name it as one of the regime's scare tactic. It's for scaring the women because, well, this is the beauty, this is the face of a woman. Especially they target beautiful young ladies in protests, and they target them, and they actually get injured even more. Uh, this regime, they're very dark, I would say, because I can't even fathom why they are doing it. They are so against with beauty. That's the whole problem. Whenever you are wearing a nice outfit, you're presentable in the society, that regime is or the agents, whatever they are attacking you. They have big problem with beautiful women, with successful women, with well-educated women, women who are independent, they are so powerful. They have big problem with this class of women, and mostly, actually, I would say Iranian women are like that. During what happened to Mahsa Amini, that actually initiated that women life freedom in Iran, that that happened was really, really brutal. However, most tragic things had happened before that, but this really ignited the huge suppressed energy in Iranians to burst out finally and say no to this tyranny against you. That is ridiculous. And this hijab, I would say, is one of the red lines of the regime. They don't want to step back about it. And while we had actually this movement, and a lot of protests happened after Mahsa Amini's murder. And in 2022, Elahe Tawakkolian, that who you see her picture here, she was actually in the protest, and during her interview she's saying that I went to protest for my daughter, because she's a single mom and she has a daughter, and she said, I did it for the future of my daughter, I did it for the future generation,
Yeah.
that they
Well, and
don't
I just
have
want
to
to say, I
suffer
think
like
that's
me.
a very significant point, and I think that's why even women in the West should be speaking up about these things, because if we don't start to educate everyone of what's going on, this is going to happen. This could be something that affects our granddaughters, our great granddaughters. I mean, these types of belief systems are literally knocking on our doors. I mean, we see what's going on over in Europe right now. So this is very concerning. We need to know about the dangers. I just want to pause for just a second and see if anyone else, maybe Marja. I know Marja, you said you've traveled over here. You've been around a lot of what's going on in the Middle East. Is there anything this comes to you with this?
Indeed, indeed. A lot of what I have seen, really to the points being made here, is that our sexuality is being weaponized against us. Beauty is seen as an evil force, that women who are beautiful are somehow utilizing their beauty to mesmerize men and make them do things that they're not supposed to do. So once again, it's really bypassing a lot of responsibility, and either blaming the women for being beautiful, for bewitching, for having this sort of hold over men. So that's one of the things that I have witnessed. And even in, say, travels in Southeast Asia, India, Central Asia, the sort of they're not even honor killings. They're sisters against sisters who are jealous of one another and will absolutely go out on these these hunts where they will go after women in their communities and throw acid on them, attack them for no apparent reason other than there's some kind of story around the specific woman, like perhaps she was betrothed to the man that everybody else wants. I mean, it's that kind of craziness, because there
Yeah.
are a lot of arranged marriages, and some of them are legit, where others are sort of fronts to traffic women, enslave them in some form, shape, or fashion. It is very, very disturbing, and we do need to speak out about it.
Yeah, it is very concerning to know that the acid attacks in Europe have gone up by like 75%. In London, Stan, I'm calling it. They have like many no-go zones in the city, and I think that's interesting that you're bringing this element of women working behind the scenes. I think you're absolutely right with that. I think there's so much patriarchal domination and control. There's so much they're completely mind wiped to work against the woman. And I think this is I don't know if this is like necessarily entirely cultural to Islam as well, because it's something I see in the US that the male is somehow put on a pedestal within families. And a lot of times you see this where women and like daughters are treated more harshly, not with the same standards. Like we have to actually work harder. And boys, in a lot of ways, I've seen this. They, uh, for some reason, there's some sort of like I don't know what the word is. I guess just prioritizing the sons over the daughters. I mean, and we know this also happens in China as well. Like seeing, boys are kind of the prize. So, I mean, I think women may take on this mentality of masculinity within the beliefs and then act according with that hatred, right? They're trying to install, especially within Islam, those rules of Islam. Um, like if a woman steps out of line, it's up to the women to corral her back in to that control system. Not the men have to do all the dirty work. I think if the men are stepping in more so, like you're seeing more of like this capital punishment, like the eye for the eye, getting shot in the eye with the BB gun, or getting the lashings on the back, or even the hangings or the stoning. The stoning to me blows my mind because, if a woman commits adultery, basically they get the father to condemn her publicly and then stone her, essentially in front of the whole family or whatever. And that to me is just like horrendous. So I mean, yeah, woman on woman crime within this, but it's really actually a mental illness. I mean, that's what we're looking at. I think it should be classified as such, honestly. I mean, the fact that these types of crimes against women can even exist and nobody in the international courts of law and human rights does anything. I mean, what can they do? What can they really do? I mean, because in order to save the women, they're going to have to go in and invade a nation against a culture. And I mean, I think it's a difficult slippery slope for us to be able to actually reach between country lines to help women. So it almost requires women within their own countries to rise up against their oppressors. But this is what we see happens to them if they do that. I
And
mean,
Andy, I just wanted to, when you started talking about that being in the Quran, like I haven't really done a lot of research on the Quran, but I immediately thought of that video that I sent to you. It's actually, I can't even get back to it. It's gone. But it was like an Islamic, I don't know what they call their priests or, head person teaching all the men how women are cattle and how women are this piece of property. And then you think about it even in Christianity, the story of Eve, right? And how much has happened with, kind of programming the woman as being the problem, And I'm seeing this energy of this possession. It's what I was talking about when I first did my intro, was how so many people, not just men, women have bought into this, have been programmed into this to feel like they are a piece of property. You know, when you look at some of the women in the music industry, comes right into
Yes.
my head, like some of these terrible, you know, people that are, I don't want, I mean, they're out there like just selling their skin. They're just out there, literally, you hear that term, sex sells, right? That's by design. And so I feel like there's this energy, this baseline energy that has been woven through many of the religions and many of the societies and cultures, that yeah, we are just this piece of property, this piece of meat. And that's why you're seeing these women that are actually working for that. They feel like they're just property. And so they're actually just buying into it and following suit, following order. And it is really, really sad. And it's something that has really been tough for me as a woman to even like navigate in my own relationships. Like even with men that don't look at me that way, I almost have that feeling of like, well, they're looking at me that way, even though they're not. And I think a lot of women struggle with this. And I just recently, I shared with you, I recently commented on a post, which I don't do very often, but it brought all of this through. Like I got attacked, like from just this really basic post that a guy was talking about. Basically, he said, it's okay for me to have a woman massage therapist, but my wife cannot have a man massage therapist. And it really struck me as that's a pretty imbalanced, thought process. And I kind of questioned the guy, like, do you not trust your wife? And the whole angle of everybody commenting was, well, he doesn't trust the massage therapist, the man, right? It's like, well, then how do you trust yourself in that other room with the woman? You're getting into a really weird space there, where it's just very unequal. I wouldn't be okay with that. I've had male massage therapists, and I mean, never had an issue. Personally, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but me putting that comment there, just a basic comment, I got like 30, 40, 50 people replying, mostly men, that were very angry at me. And I literally got somebody who messaged me on Instagram with hate mail, like calling me names, being really, really disgusting with some of the things that he was saying to me. And it really made me start to dig into that a little bit, because I was like, wow, these men really don't trust themselves. They really do look at women like pieces of meat for them to even have that mentality, for them to even feel that way. And so the first part of fixing part of this is actually, us men and women being able to deprogram and being able to come back to that organic template of, this beautiful idea of sacred union, and that, we are all equal on some planes, right? I mean, there's of course differences and we're all individuals, but like, to look at it that way, just because I'm not saying, right, the men's sexual parts and pieces are different, right? They are more of the one that is, the giver and not the receiver. They do have these functions in their body that are a little bit more right out there. I can just say that when they are turned on or aroused, and maybe they have a little bit more of that, hormone that makes them, have a higher libido, all of these things that, right, physically there are some differences. And I think it all plays into that. I've gone really far off, but I wanted to just share this because it was like important to me. Ani, I saw you unmute. Do you have something to share on this too?
Yeah, well, it was funny when you were talking, I was thinking that a lot of men think, when women start talking strongly or like voicing their opinion, they say it's vocal fry. So it's just like that, wah type of like sound, and they just, want to cut you off. And yeah, it's really prevalent. I feel like in our society right now, even in the United States, this is a patriarchal society. Look at who's running everything right now. Is it women? Not so much. It's men. And I just wanted to go off on what Marja said in the beginning. She had made a comment about how behind the scenes, like where it was really hard for you to be able to even like recognize it, there are women who are actually playing along with this and feeding into it. Like there's actually misogynistic women out there, which is kind of crazy. And so, and what happens with women is we start, you know, if we feel any form of jealousy, or if like one woman is like a little bit more powerful than the other one, then there's like this pecking order and we actually attack each other. And then the men feed into that. And so this is like this perpetual cycle that is like happening over and over again. And it actually weakens us women when that happens. And so I just feel like it's really important for women to start speaking out, to really like start standing up and voicing their opinions and not being afraid of being strong in front of men. And the thing is, it really comes in numbers. Like we have to do it together and we have to not attack each other. And so I'm basically speaking more towards women here. And, you know, I do have a son. He's 18 years old almost. And I do want him to raise him to be a divine masculine type of person. But there is all this programming that is like come forth, even though I am such a strong mother for him, you know? So it's just really challenging all around. And I'm not really sure where we can go forward with this, because I just feel like there is a massive attempt to take and steal the life force energy of our planet. And obviously, you know, Mother Earth, like she has this feminine energy to her, and they're extracting the energy, they're looshing the energy, they're looshing the energy from women and their life force, which is in the first and second chakras. Like, since we have that ability to give birth, like we have this passive, you know, like not passive, but very powerful life force within us. And so it's a way to take that energy away from us so that we feel powerless. And so my question that I would like to kind of pose to everybody is what are the next steps? What do we do to bring our power back, number one, and also like start shifting our perceptions and the collective consciousness around life in general, and that all life is sacred. What do we do, you know, moving forward? And yeah, my question to Shideh was, what can the women do? Like, it's really scary, you know, when I've been a victim of domestic violence. I know how it feels. When in my early 20s, I was a victim. Even though it didn't happen over a long period of time, it was short. It still created major fear in my life. And so these women are, you know, victims of like huge domestic violence, like huge, like atrocities upon them. So I can't imagine, like, when you have that fear in you, what do, you know, after those atrocities happen? So that's kind of like my question.
And Shideh, I'll let you respond just a second. Yeah. I just want to play a little video though, because I kind of want to tie back into something Noko said with, I think, yeah, Noko, you were saying how the men like can't control themselves, right? So then there's like this punishment on the woman, and I feel like this is what the hijab and the burqa actually like represents. I feel like it all comes back to that. I have a little video clip. I'm just gonna share it really quick with everyone because I did pull this up for the show, and just let me know what you guys think. And then I'm actually gonna play two videos, and one is on. It's a quick little excerpt, like maybe 30, 45 seconds, on what these child marriages look like. So I feel like there's a lot of grooming going on. So when we think about like even like the woman on woman stuff, I feel like we have to remember like these people are getting groomed into the ideologies of these things. Let me just make sure my computer sound is good. Okay. All right, I'm just gonna play this really fast here.
How helpless are women in Afghanistan? The Taliban's new rules have stripped them of almost all their freedom. They are not allowed to speak in public. Even conversations with female friends must be whispered. They can only leave home with a male guardian and must be completely covered in heavy burqas, with not a single strand of hair visible. Even female news anchors on TV are required to wear masks and headscarves. They are banned from education beyond primary school and cannot work in non-governmental organizations. Worse yet, if they fall ill, they cannot be treated by male doctors, and female doctors are extremely rare, meaning many women are left without medical care. Even access to public restrooms is restricted, and their home windows must be opaque, so outsiders cannot see that women live there. Afghanistan was once a place where women could study, work, and enjoy freedom. But now, the only glimpse they have of the world is through the mesh of their burqas.
And I just want to say, think about how selfish that is. I mean, that these men like put all of their inability to control their sexual lust and force them to cover up in this way to a point that did you hear that when they said about the women aren't allowed to be educated to become doctors, but the women are not allowed to go to male doctors? That means that the women are not being educated. There will be no female doctors. So that means that there will be no medical care for women in Afghan. I mean, this is just, I mean, what is left in your existence as a woman? And I know this is Afghanistan, but this is like, it's shattering. It's devastating to hear that because it's not like, because we live over here, like our lives are more valuable in some way. Like these are women, and I mean, when you live this way as a woman, you don't realize you're entrapped. You don't under that burqa, they don't realize this is a slavery system. They don't realize this is a forced breeder program. You shrink, you get smaller and smaller and smaller. You have no voice. You just accept, accept, accept. So it's like, posing the same question you just had, Ani, like, what do we do? What do
Right.
we do?
Especially when like they're stripped completely of their identity. Like there's like nothing left. There's like a sheet over your body. Like you can't even see any part of the person, you know?
And Indy and Ani, this is
Yeah.
also just making me realize this is part of why so many women that I see here, in the US are out there like, twerking it and doing the skin and, all these women that are like trying to claim, right, reclaim their, feminine essence and I'm allowed to be this way because I feel like it's literally in opposition of this right here, of being held down, of being covered up, of being feeling like, you know what, if you're going to treat me like a piece of meat, I'm going to go ahead and be one and I'm going to let it empower me. So it's just like this really toxic energy around trying to correct that.
Definitely, definitely. I'm going to play this next clip here. Um, this one's really quick, but this is really happening. I feel like she says here on the post, a shameless community in the world. I feel like, yeah, this is absolutely crazy. I mean, me and Shideh talked about this on our show that we did about Aisha and pedophilia and Muhammad being a pedophile and taking this young girl as a wife at 9 years old. It's a super short clip, but I mean, that's just awful. 8-year-old child bride dies from internal bleeding after her wedding night. Like, what is going on? Like, how is this even? And this is what breaks me is I feel like all people should be responsible for these crimes as a whole. I mean, if you're going to support an ideology that continues to support something that is so diabolical against innocence, I mean, I really feel like the ones that carry the wisdom, like the ones that have transcended the barbarism and the pedophilia, like I mean, I guess you could say countries like uh and I don't know extensively if this is true or not, but maybe like the UAE or Qatar, supposedly, they pose as if they are peaceful and, you know, have everything all together, so to speak. Why are they not educating the ones that are doing these types of acts and these types of things? Like, put the whole thing through a revolution of some kind to assist humanity. There's so many walls, so many barriers, so much ideological divisions and low IQ. I can't imagine why, um, this isn't somehow put on the world stage in a way that we can remove these veils of illusion over people that like worship the things that support this. It's just, I mean, those girls when they're next to these young men, like they look frightened. They look like, what the F? Like, I mean, yeah, I know it's hard to speak on that.
I'll speak on it.
Okay.
Um, I I have worked with quite a number of women over the years who have survived those arranged marriages and were, fortunately for them, were discarded for the for that latest model. And these men are allowed to have mistresses. So it's like a revolving door. And it is really hard to speak to it. And I know over the years for myself, I've spoken out about this and have been smeared and deplatformed off of my first YouTube channel, you know, after being on there for almost 10 years. And, you know, people don't want to believe that this is actually going on. And so there's this pushback of, you don't know what you're talking about. It's their culture, don't interfere. This is religious dogma, don't interfere. I have read both versions of the Quran, the Sirah, and the Hadith. Pre-Medina, after Medina, it is shocking. It is shocking. And you can respect it as a whole, but then when you start going down into the many different rabbit holes, it is actually a blow-by-blow manual of not just taking over the world, but taking over human energy. There's something very malignant about it. And I know that for myself, in my explorations of Sufism, for instance, you know, I was very intrigued, and I was in love with the poetry, and then at the same time realizing, no, wait a minute, it's like, what's going on in the basement? You know, there's all this love and light and this beauty, an incredible beauty, and yet when you juxtapose that beauty next to what these texts actually promote, and then most people don't want to believe it, you know? So it's really up to us, I believe, to give each other a voice, give each other platforms such as this, and to understand that when you speak about such things, there are going to be consequences, and you have to be brave. You've got to be brave to be able to take the hit, be brave, and, you know, you got to take precautions. And this is just part of the great work that we all undertake when you become very privy to injustices and human atrocities, and the idea of turning the other cheek and letting it go as if it doesn't exist is criminal and an act of evil in and of itself. So I know that for myself, you know, having been at this for a very, very long time, and having been shut down over and over and over again, I'm still here, you know, and we have to speak on different platforms. We've got to make these facts known, even in the tiniest circles, you know, to create that spark and to allow that spark to ignite. And you know, just speaking to the dark feminine, you know, and I get criticized a lot that a lot of women will accuse me of being misogynist. I am not, but I am going to call out my sisters who have so much of that dark masculinity running through their tissues that they actually take on those qualities of being perpetrators, you know, and I'm not saying all the perpetrators are men, they are not. But when we as women are so far down a road of evil, either based on our own atrocities upon ourselves, and we have not done the shadow work to excavate those energies and to take ownership of some of the perhaps atavistic triggerings that go from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime, because we've got a lot of that going on. And then to understand the manipulation that's happening within media circles that would try to set us upon each other, so that we divide between, sister versus sister, or masculine versus feminine. And if you notice all the weird stuff that's going on right now in the US, and all the sort of weaponized sexuality with all the different pronouns and genders and all that BS, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It's not surprising that we are also confused as to, well, what is real? And we have to really dig deep into our own heart of hearts and really see the evil for what it is. And sometimes a lot of that evil comes within, where we are so afraid of any kind of retaliation, any kind of repercussion, any kind of consequence, that we would zip it rather than taking the risk of being attacked. I was in Belfast in 2019, and I was on a book tour, and I had done a talk about masculine and feminine energies, not talking about men and women. And after the event, I was actually attacked by a woman in a hijab, in a burqa, who accused me of being a patriarchy apologist. Now, I found that ironic. And then I noticed this woman had reddish hair, and she had her posse of what looked to me, her Middle Eastern friends. I got spat on, kicked, because of what I was speaking about. And I was talking about the energies, the receptive principle, the gifting giving principle of the masculine. It was actually a very lovely talk. But to be attacked and to be told that I'm a patriarchy apologist by a woman in a hijab was just so bizarre to me, because having been to Middle Eastern countries, you can't get any more patriarchal than those environments, than those cultures. Having their goddess roots, beautiful goddess roots, just so squashed down and eliminated as if they never existed. So this stuff is going on, and the grooming that's happening to our young people, the grooming that's happening to our women and our men, our children. I mean, there's just so many things that each of us can focus in on to bring light to it. And, I feel like that's a start, to have those conversations, and they're very, very tricky. They're very triggering, and people are not going to like you. And, I always say, I'm not here to be liked, I'm here to really on behalf of our children who need a voice, and they need a strong masculine voice, and they need a strong feminine voice. And we need that combination, that marriage.
I just want to say everything you said was so well said and so well received. I really resonated with what you just said. I think the part that came through for me right there was becoming privy to this information. And then what do you do with it? Because that's exactly kind of like where I'm at right now. I feel like I've expanded to a whole other depth of truth and a whole other depth of darkness that exists on this earth that I really never knew was this deep, say, previous 2 years ago. It's like something really just opened up in the last couple years for me. And I'm having all of this, like, I don't know how to go back to an old world having all of this information, and I feel like I'm doing something against God, righteousness, and justice, if I don't just lay everything on the line and start just going to bat for all of these diabolical things, because I feel like I'm turning my back on humanity. I feel like how can I live knowing these things and just walk around like everything's okay? I get there's like this need to take care of self and, stay in balance within your own life, but I feel like if these depths of evil exist, like I cannot live with myself not speaking, not doing something, not advocating, not making an effort wherever I can. And so when you get opened up in that way and you see how dark and how cruel, and it's not just cruelty, it's like there's like a there's like a force laughing behind the cruelty,
Indeed, indeed.
consuming the cruelty. I mean,
Yes,
it's so
yes,
much more diabolical.
yeah. And that is their food, by the way. So, and it's a double-edged sword, because how can you not feel injustice? How can you not feel rage? And this is the tricky part, because we do have to stay balanced. We do have to stay centered. We do have to be able to feel that righteous indignation, the righteous rage, and somehow not be so identified that we implode, because it's going to take all of us to really turn things around, because everything is so upside down and inverted, and that is part of the satanic inversion that's just kind of engulfed this in the matrix reality that we are all endeavoring through consciousness and through really learning what the hard truths are, and learning with those hard truths to waltz in and out of that matrix reality with our higher consciousness, and also with the intention to do whatever that we can in our own unique way to really turn things right side up. And so each one of us here, I honor all of us and everybody listening. And, because we each have our own ideas and our own set of, I don't want to call them triggers, but sometimes trigger is a good word, because it ignites our ability to rise up and stand. And within women, we have that masculine energy nature that is going to defend all that is good. And I think this is in part part of our empowerment is really igniting that inner masculine, and allowing him, quote unquote, to take up a sword if we have to. And that sword can be that sword of truth, and to have the courage, that sort of heart energy to step out and put it all on the line, and say things that people aren't going to like, or they don't, or they want you to shut up.
Yeah.
So
I've kind of gotten to this place, especially with social media. I don't care anymore who gets angry. I don't care who lashes out and attacks me. I don't care who gets disrupted by it. I feel like, well, if you don't like the shock value, I mean, I'm going for the shock value. I mean, how else are you supposed to, like you said, we have to speak, we have to advocate, and that is, I mean, you have to take the hit almost to be the one that people attack just to bring the information forward, because there is no nice way to say a lot of this stuff.
mhm.
People just, as soon as they hear it, as soon as they see it, it's immediate trigger. Oh, you're a liar. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Some people might reach out nicely and just try to be like, well, I just don't think you really know what's going on. But it's like, I want to respond back and be like, point here,
Yeah.
research this, do this. But it's just like, no, I think the seed's been planted.
Yes.
There's been some level of awareness. Maybe they'll continue to unfold and search and seek for themselves.
And to be honest, everything that we're talking about here, it is way fucking worse than you could possibly imagine.
Absolutely. Yes. It's just
It's
I
torture.
I've built a shield though. I've built a shield. Yeah, I feel. Go ahead, Ani.
I was gonna say it's torture. It's pure torture. It's like living in hell. My main, I've thought about what does this mean on a soul level? The ones that are abusing life, taking from life, raping life, torturing life. And the ones that are the victims of it. And so it makes me think what's happening on a deeper level. And so I wonder, are some of these women who are being tortured like this, are they coming here on this planet to be kind of almost like the matriarch, or like, I don't know, to try and show and try and bring this like divine feminine force back. And so it's almost like they're sacrificing in a way. And so they're going through all this pain and torture, but once they pass on the other side, maybe there's a higher purpose to all of us. There absolutely is a higher purpose to all of us. And so and I wonder, those that are torturing these people in life, are they it's like an attempt to wake them up, to a higher level, because I mean, we are moving, our planet is evolving. We are moving to this higher dimension, higher level, and we cannot have this violence, moving forward. We can't have it on the new earth. There's no way. And so I just wonder if all of this is coming to the surface right now. And, thank goodness we have the internet so that we can actually see these things. So that's kind of like a blessing. So it's coming to the forefront. Like 40 years ago, we wouldn't have known this is going on. I mean, we would be reading in a newspaper or, on the news. So thank goodness we can talk about it like this. So that's an amazing thing. But I really wonder what's happening on this like deeper level of why this is all coming to the surface.
Yeah. I think those are all very good and relevant introspection that I think we're all really processing right now as a soul collective. It's definitely has me going back through all of the layers of, what's the point of creation and free will and divine will, and, how does this all play out karmically in the angelic realms, and, what is all this sacrifice of human life for? I'm really recircling back through all of these questions,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really got me going a lot deeper on a personal level. Well, this has been a very enlightening conversation. I feel like we have so much more. Like I feel like we definitely could continue to dig, and we could definitely continue to reach and come to more conclusions with things. I feel like this was such an amazing panel. I just want to ask, does anyone else have any last things that they would like to say to everyone watching today? Or do you guys feel like we've kind of summed it up? I feel like we just kind of did. We kind of just left it on a powerful and beautiful, introspective, positive note. Um, I'd like to showcase you guys. So if anyone watching would like to come and subscribe to your channel and support your guys' work, we have a little visual that we want to put up that has the links for everyone. And I think we're going to share that in just a second. Thank you everyone for tuning in today. Um, yeah, we hadn't had time to check the chat so much as we were really intensely into that one. As you can see, there's a lot of passion here with this. Oh, these are all of my links. So if you'd like to join the gridwork mission in Qatar, we'll be on patreon.com/IndigoAngel. Marja West, LoveTruth&Beauty.com. You can subscribe to her YouTube, Love, Truth, and Beauty. Ani Sophene, you can find her at quantummessages1.com, and you can subscribe to her YouTube at Quantum Messages with Ani Sophene. Shideh, if you'd like to reach out to her, her email is lightmerkaba888@gmail.com. And also you can find her on IG and then Noko as well. You can find her at nokostribe.com. She's on IG at Nokomas77 and Noko's Tribe. So, yeah, guys, we love you all so much. Thank you for tuning in with us today. I feel like this will be a round table to come into the future. I think we love getting together and supporting our sisterhood here and just collapsing down all of that misogynistic sisterhood stuff. Like, I feel like we're breaking through those blockages and matrices every day, getting stronger as a divine feminine collective to talk about these things. So, yeah, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We love you all, and peace, YouTube.